Found family fantasy is not just a book with a group of friends. It is a reading experience where loyalty is built rather than inherited, and where the emotional reward comes from people choosing each other under pressure. That is why this list is organized by warmth level, not by fame or complexity. The Goblin Emperor and the House in the Cerulean Sea sit on the gentler side. They work well when you want kindness, restraint, and a clear sense of emotional shelter. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet gives that feeling through a crew and a shared daily rhythm. Kings of the Wyld adds humor, age, and old bonds. Six of Crows and the Lies of Locke Lamora are sharper. They are better when you want trust with risk, banter, and a little edge. The important thing is that none of these recommendations depends on plot details. You can choose by tone alone. If you want cozy reassurance, start soft. If you want a faster and rougher group dynamic, move toward the heist and adventure side. The goal is not to find the objectively best found family book. The goal is to choose the version of belonging that matches the kind of fantasy you actually want tonight. The Goblin Emperor, Catherine Addison. This gentle political fantasy is formal, intimate, and emotionally careful, with a court setting built around pressure and restraint. For readers who want found family without constant noise, this is one of the cleanest starting points. The appeal is not a big team adventure. It is the slow comfort of watching trust become possible in a world where etiquette, duty, and loneliness can make every room feel difficult. Catherine Addison is the pen name of Sarah Monette, and the book is often described as fantasy of manners because so much of the tension comes from behavior, hierarchy, and social expectation. That detail matters for beginners. If you usually think fantasy means quests, battles, and maps, this book shows another route. It is still fantasy, but the magic of the reading experience is emotional clarity. The found family element feels earned because the book gives attention to small acts of decency. It rewards patience. It also suits readers who want something thoughtful without needing a huge series commitment. The language can feel slightly formal at first, but that formality becomes part of the comfort. Start here if you want kindness that does not feel simple, and if you want a fantasy book where belonging arrives quietly instead of loudly. The House in the Cerulean Sea. T.J. Klune. This warm fantasy is soft, bright, and easy to enter, with a magical setting that favors comfort over complexity. This is the safest pick when someone says they want found family, but also wants the reading experience to feel low pressure. The book is direct, generous, and emotionally open. It does not ask you to memorize a large political system or learn a dense magic vocabulary. It works because it understands that found family is often about permission. Permission to belong, permission to be odd, permission to be seen without being managed into something smaller. That makes it especially useful for viewers who are returning to reading after a break. The style is approachable, and the emotional direction is clear from early on. Some readers prefer darker fantasy, and they may find this one too gentle. That is not a flaw. It is the point of the recommendation. In this guide, it represents the warmest lane. If the Goblin Emperor is quiet dignity, this is emotional sunlight. Choose it when you want reassurance, found family, and a book that makes its values easy to understand. It is also a strong gift-style recommendation because the premise is accessible and the tone is unusually welcoming. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Becky Chambers. This character-centered space adventure is gentle, conversational, and built around the feeling of sharing a ship. Even though it is science fiction rather than traditional fantasy, it belongs in this guide because many fantasy readers want the same emotional shape, a small group, a shared routine, and a sense that the people around you become home. Becky Chambers writes the Wayfarer's books as loosely connected stories, so this first book can be treated as an inviting doorway rather than a heavy commitment. The pleasure comes from community texture. You get meals, work habits, cultural differences, small disagreements, and a calm belief that people can learn how to make room for one another. That makes it a good bridge for readers who enjoy fantasy but want something lighter on prophecy and heavier on companionship. It is also one of the best picks for audiobook-style listening because the scenes often feel like conversations you can settle into. If you need constant urgency, this may feel too relaxed. If you like the idea of a crew becoming emotionally familiar over time, it is one of the most reliable found family choices. It proves that the theme does not need castles or taverns to work. Kings of the Wyld, Nicholas Eames. This is a funny, adventurous fantasy about old bonds, aging heroes, and the comfort of a team that already knows its scars. It is the best pick here if you want found family with more volume. The book has a playful relationship with classic quest fantasy, but the emotional core is sincere rather than ironic. Nicholas Eames builds the world around the idea of mercenary bands, with the energy of rock groups, which gives the book a memorable hook without making it hard to follow. That concept also makes the found family theme very easy to feel. These are not strangers forming a careful new household. This is a group with history, jokes, frustration, loyalty, and the complicated warmth of people who have known one another for too long to pretend. For beginner fantasy readers, the advantage is momentum. The tone moves quickly, the humor creates lift, and the group dynamic gives the reader an easy emotional anchor. It is more chaotic than the House in the Cerulean Sea, and less formal than the Goblin Emperor. Choose it when you want camaraderie, action, and a book that feels like sitting near a noisy table of people who insult each other because they are deeply attached. Six of Crows, Le Bardugo. This fast fantasy heist is tense, stylish, and group-driven, with belonging shaped through skill, risk, and hard-earned trust. This is the recommendation for readers who want found family with edges. It is the first book in a duology, so the commitment is clear and contained, which helps if you do not want a sprawling fantasy series. Le Bardugo writes in the Grishaverse, but this book is often treated as a strong entry point for readers who care more about team chemistry than full universe chronology. The found family feeling comes from competence and dependence. Each person matters because the group needs different strength, different instincts, and different ways of seeing danger. That creates a very different texture from the warmer books in this guide. Here, connection does not arrive as softness first. It arrives through pressure, banter, boundaries, and the gradual sense that survival is easier when trust has somewhere to land. This book is better for readers who already like sharper pacing and a little moral grayness. It may not be the calmest first fantasy pick, but it is one of the clearest examples of found family as a team dynamic. Choose it when you want focus, tension, and a cast that feels assembled with purpose. The Lies of Locke Lamora, Scott Lynch. This witty fantasy caper is clever, urban, and sharp-tongued, with loyalty built through a tight inner circle. This is the pick for readers who want found family to feel funny, risky, and a little bruised. It begins the gentleman bastard sequence, but the first book has enough identity to function as a strong test of the style before you decide whether to continue. Scott Lynch gives the setting a vivid city atmosphere, and that matters because the group feels shaped by place. Their humor, habits, and loyalties make sense inside a world of schemes, status, and quick thinking. The reading experience is not as soft as Becky Chambers or TJ Klune. It has more bite. It also asks for a reader who enjoys structure, voice, and verbal energy. The reason it belongs in a found family guide is that the emotional center is not romance or destiny. It is allegiance. It is the pleasure of watching people who understand one another deeply, even when their lives are messy. Choose it after you know you want more intensity. Or start here if you already enjoy clever dialogue and group loyalty. It is a strong bridge from fantasy into crime-flavored storytelling without losing the emotional pull of chosen bonds. If your main reason for searching this topic is comfort, start with The House in the Cerulean Sea, then try The Goblin Emperor, then move to The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. That order is not about quality, it is about emotional friction. TJ Klune gives the clearest reassurance, so the reader does not need to work hard to understand the promise. Catherine Addison offers a quieter form of comfort. It asks for a little more patience, but it gives back a deep sense of dignity and relief. Becky Chambers then opens the theme into a crew structure, where home is not a building or a court, but a shared rhythm. This lane is especially good for viewers who feel tired of grim fantasy, endless cynicism, or books that make every relationship feel transactional. The interesting part is that these three books show how wide the found family idea can be. One uses warm, magical bureaucracy. One uses etiquette and loneliness. One uses space travel and everyday coexistence. None needs a long plot explanation to make sense. The decision is emotional. Choose The House in the Cerulean Sea if you want the softest landing. Choose The Goblin Emperor if you want grace under pressure. Choose The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet if you want a group that starts to feel familiar. If you want found family with more sharpness, the stronger lane is Kings of the Wyld, Six of Crows, and The Lies of Locke Lamora. These books give you groups under pressure, but each uses a different emotional flavor. Nicholas Eames makes loyalty loud, funny, and physical. Le Bardugo makes it strategic and tense. Scott Lynch makes it witty, fast, and wrapped in urban danger. That distinction matters because many readers say they want found family when they actually mean they want a group dynamic that never feels flat. These three books deliver that. They are less about safe shelter and more about chosen trust when things are complicated. For a beginner, Kings of the Wyld is the easiest of the three to relax into because the tone is playful and the premise is clear. Six of Crows is probably the best if you want a precise team with distinct roles. The Lies of Locke Lamora is best if you want voice, banter, and a city that feels like part of the personality. This lane is not as soothing as the warm lane, but it can feel more energizing. Choose it when you want belonging with jokes, nerves, and sharper edges. Here is the simplest way to choose. If you are nervous about fantasy, start with The House in the Cerulean Sea. It is welcoming, clear, and emotionally direct. If you already like elegant prose and quieter emotional stakes, start with The Goblin Emperor. If you want a crew that feels like daily life with strange horizons, start with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. If you want jokes, action, and a slightly older adventure feeling, start with Kings of the Wyld. If you want a tight team, sharper pacing, and the structure of a fantasy heist, start with Six of Crows. If you want clever dialogue, city atmosphere, and loyalty with more bite, start with The Lies of Locke Lamora. This decision map is important because found family is not one mood. Some readers want softness, some want banter, some want a team that earns trust through pressure, some want the comfort of people making space for each other. There is no need to force the same book on every viewer. The better approach is to match intensity first. Warmest to sharpest, the ladder runs from TJ Klune to Catherine Addison to Becky Chambers, then Nicholas Eames, Leigh Bardugo, and Scott Lynch. Use that ladder and the choice becomes much easier. The biggest mistake with found family fantasy is starting with the book that has the most famous reputation instead of the one that fits your tolerance for intensity. If you want a gentle read and you begin with the sharpest option, you may think the theme is not for you. If you want energy and you begin with the softest option, you may think the genre is too sweet. So treat this list like a volume control. The House in the Cerulean Sea and the Goblin Emperor are lower volume. They ask you to notice kindness, restraint, and emotional safety. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet is medium volume, because the crew structure gives more motion while still staying relaxed. Kings of the Wyld turns the volume up through humor and adventure. Six of Crows and the Lies of Locke Lamora turn it up through pace, risk, and sharper dialogue. This is why the guide does not rank them from worst to best. A ranking would be less useful than a fit test. Start with the emotional temperature you actually want, then move sideways when you are ready. That method keeps reading from feeling like homework, and it makes each recommendation more likely to land at the right time. For most new readers, the cleanest path is this. Start with The House in the Cerulean Sea if you want the warmest and easiest entry, or start with The Goblin Emperor if you want a quieter and more refined emotional experience. After that, choose your direction. Go to The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet if you want the found family feeling to become a crew experience. Go to Kings of the Wyld if you want more humor and adventure. Go to Six of Crows if you want a focused team with tension and pace. Go to The Lies of Locke Lamora if you want wit, loyalty, and sharper urban fantasy energy. That path gives you control. You are not committing to one mood for the whole genre. You are sampling the theme through different levels of warmth, speed, and edge. The key point is simple. Found family fantasy works best when you choose by emotional need first. If you need comfort, start soft. If you need momentum, start with the rowdier books. If you need a balance, use Becky Chambers or Nicholas Eames as the middle path. The full book list is in the description, so you can pick one starter and come back when you are ready for the next tone.